It's a season of transition. Will it be a rebuild or a reload? Let's talk about it. Hello, everybody. Terry Bennett here on the Lago Vista ISD Football Show, right here on S2S Sports, part of L4 Media, as the Vikings get ready for the 2023 season. And it's going to be a little different than it has been the last couple years, as the Vikings only return 3 starters on offense, 3 starters on defense. Now, the weird thing about that is it's still a pretty big senior class. So that it's a weird transition, because usually when you've got so few starters, you're going to be like, okay, we're going to load up on sophomores and juniors, and we're gonna see what they do over the next couple of years. And there's going to be some of those, of course, in the lineup. But for the Vikings, they've got a lot of seniors, and they might not have started, but this is a senior class that has played a lot of football when you look at what they've done over the last few years. And Coach talks about it in the interview, but you're talking 10 wins in 2022, 10 wins in 2021, 9 wins in 2020. That's 29 wins for a senior class that, while they might not have started all those games as a group, they got a lot of playing time, and there's a lot of talent on that roster. But this is still going to be a transition season. And this was the season that I worried about when the realignment hit and you jumped up into 13-4A Division II. I figured last year, the Vikings were going to be fine. And I think the Vikings are going to be fine this year as well. I don't know if I can say that the Vikings are a region threat at the moment. I felt last year going into the season they were a region threat. And, of course, they started off against Cameron Yo, and that game went the way it was. But then the rest of the season kind of unfolded kind of like I thought it would. That Yo game, that was a weird game. A defense that turned out to be vastly underrated. Struggled in that first game, and we'll have to see if that'll happen in this game as well. It's going to be an interesting matchup. Yo is a lot like Lago Vista in that they have some questions to answer, but they have a lot of that offensive core back that was really good. Now, they are going to miss Trajan Wilcox and Amanda Reyes, but they've still got Braylon Drake back, and he's a really good quarterback. Last year, threw for 30 touchdowns, had almost 2,700 yards passing. They've also got their running back, Kadarius Bradley, back. Last year, he had 1,000 yards and 14 touchdowns. I think he's going to have a bigger role this year. I think he was a little slowed by injuries, but I also think that they're going to need to make him a focus point of that offense for this year for the Yeomen. This is a team last year a lot of people had written off because of the district they were in, and lo and behold, they go 9-4 on the year. Their only losses were to Conley, Belleville, both 4A teams. Belleville had a magical run, though they got upset in the second round of the playoffs, but they were unbeaten in the top 3 team for most of the year. Then they lost to Franklin in district, and then to Columbus in the third round of the playoffs after beating a good Yoakum team who they'd beat earlier in the year. So, this Yeoman team surprised a lot of people last year. And it's weird to say that the Yo surprised people, especially with Rick Rhodes back, but in that district, I think they outperformed their expectations. This year, it's going to be an interesting first game of the season. Of course, as always, we're going to be talking to the head coach of the Vikings, Coach Creighton Phillips, about that. Talk about the offseason. Talk about the heat. And I know, a lot of old schoolers might be like, oh, tough it out, but it's just different now. Even some of the old schoolers that were saying that the last time we had that really bad heat wave, I think it was 2011, 2010, somewhere in that area. Even they're saying, like, yeah, this is just different. There's just something about this heat. And I think mainly it's because at night it's just not cooling off at all. I know right now in the studio as I record this intro, it's Tuesday night, 7 p.m., and it's 102 degrees outside. It's just absolutely crazy. So we'll talk about the heat. We'll talk about Cameron. We'll talk about the season. We'll talk about the district. We'll talk about it all. But first, we want to thank our sponsors. And that, of course, is for this episode, the Lago Vista Booster Club. They have exciting news as the Viking Sports Network is now powered by Huddle TV. Now, that's a new thing, so there's some important changes that we'd like to let you know about. You need to go and create an account at fan.huddle.com. That's www.fan.huddle.com. Search for Lago Vista Vikings. Now, there will be a fee per broadcast, $8 for a single broadcast, or get the monthly subscription, $15, or you can do a yearly for $75. And Huddle TV will be the home of all Viking sports broadcasts. That's not just football, that's volleyball, that's basketball, that's baseball, and softball. And your subscription will get all of those games. I was going to tell you right now, do the yearly if you can. I'm a real big believer in the annuals. I used to not be as I was younger. In my mind, it was more money going out. I'd spend less for less time. And then you realize you do that 3 or 4 months in a row, and you've already spent what you would have did if you did just bit the bullet for that one time. And Huddle TV, they're trying to be like NFHS and also Texan Live, and they're starting to get a lot of teams and a lot of broadcasts over. So even if you're not just a Lago Vista fan, you want to watch others, Huddle TV is starting to get that. So you can easily sign up. Again, that's fan.huddle.com. If you have any questions, please email Eric at eholt@lagovistaisd.net. All right, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, it's the head coach of the Vikings, Coach Creighton Phillips, right here on the Lago Vista ISD Football Show on S2S Sports. Is your demanding work lifestyle in need of fire-resistant clothing that can keep up? Well, L4FR clothing should be your go-to for quality, affordability, safety, and style. L4FR was founded by a third-generation oil field worker who is also a veteran. Thus, this company has a deep appreciation for reliability and longevity, all while we provide first-rate customer service. Our durable apparel will serve you well for many years to come, whether you're working on a pipeline, a lineman climbing utility poles, or in any other environment requiring fire-resistant apparel. L4FR has you covered. Our apparel is tough enough to resist hazardous conditions while still providing high comfort and style. L4FR provides clothing options to ensure your safety and comfort, whether you're on the job or not. To view our complete inventory of flame-resistant garments, please visit our online store at l4frclothing.com or give us a call at 817-757-4935. Si habla español. Terry Bennett back here on the Lago Vista Vikings football show. Now joined by the head coach of the Vikings, Coach Creighton Phillips. And, Coach, first off, how was the offseason? How was the summer?
Man, we had a fantastic offseason. Kids really put in the work, got stronger, got faster, ran track, did all the things we asked them to do. And summer was good. It was hot, just like it. The summer is just extending on into the fall, it looks like. But our kids are acclimated. They've put the time in out there in the heat, and I think they're ready to play.
Let's go ahead and talk about that heat, because that was actually something I was going to bring up here in a little bit anyway. I know it's always hot in Texas, but this has been one of the hotter years, I think, since like 2011 or 2010. That year, we started to see a lot more awareness of the heat, and we're seeing it more this year. What do y'all do as a program to combat the heat?
We do a couple things. Number one, we try to get as much in the morning as we can.
Yeah.
We have first period athletics, so we work out and set our main practice. The long practice is in the morning before school and into first period, and then after school is, we're really not out on the turf for max an hour. Typically it's scheduled for about 30 minutes. That's when we use our weights, and video time is after school when it gets really hot.
Well, and you talk about the turf, and that is one of the few negatives about having a turf is how much it heats up. Game time, we're seeing a lot of schools and games being moved to 8 o'clock. Is that something you think is going to happen for the next few weeks? Because it doesn't look like this heat's going away anytime soon.
Well, we haven't discussed that with the people that we play.
Yeah.
We're going to try to tough it out best we can. We actually have the Hellas Ecotherm infill, and whereas it has not rained in 2 weeks to activate that, I've actually drugged the field with a sprayer that you would spray fields with, and just put some moisture down on that turf, and it's dropped at about 30 degrees. So it's been pretty nice. We had to practice in the afternoons because of in-service last week, and that made it a lot more tolerable. And it was still 107 degrees outside, and it was still hot turf, but it wasn't as hot as it would have been without that. So we'll do that before games this Thursday coming up, and probably next Friday if we don't get any rain between now and then.
Well, let's speak about it. You know, with a team like you that you only return 6 starters, 3 on offense, 3 on defense. One of the positives about this Heat is you're going to be rotating a lot of players. You have an interesting situation where you don't have a ton of returning starters, but you do have a heavy senior class. These guys have gotten a lot of football in, a lot of practices in, whether they were starting or not. When over the last 3 years, won 9, 10, and 10 games, so they might not have the game cred, but I mean they've got a lot of experience.
Right. So if they're a senior this year, they've been a part of a 4-round deep, 5-round deep, and 4-round deep, respectively, season. So they've gotten an extra, what's the math there? 13 games
yes.
in, right? So an extra 13 games in. It's an extra season worth of experience. And most of those guys, if they're seniors playing for us now, they probably got moved up as freshmen, at least were a part of it. So they do get some extra experience with their practice time. Some high quality practice as we, pare the team down a little bit and they all get those reps and get that experience. So we feel like although they don't have game experience, which is important, and they're going to continue to grow, that's part of having a young, inexperienced team. You really look forward to the growth that happens.
Well, we all
should be getting better and better each week.
We all know the names from last year: Helton, Calden, Staub. So who are some of the new names this year to look forward to?
Well, we've got Garcia at quarterback, coach's kid, just been around it his whole life. So he's pretty headsy. He's doing a good job there. We've kind of changed our, how we attack people, I think, offensively, to play to our strengths. I think we have a potentially maybe the best offensive line that I've had since I've been in Lago Vista. They're not there yet, but I think they're definitely going to be. We have some really good running backs. Wyatt Herring, our leading returning rusher, he's back for us. And I've got a couple of tailbacks that I think are going to be pretty exciting this year.
All right, let's go into it. This week, you take on Cameron Yo. Last year, it was a shootout, and I can remember talking to you just how you saw a lot of positives, but you were just kind of frustrated by the defense. And Yo last year had a great offense. How much do you look back at last year's game when you're starting week 1?
We have to. I think we look back to see how they played us, how they defended us, what was, how did they attack our defense, how did they play our offense. And so the scrimmages, you don't always get the same defense to look at or the same offense to look at out of the teams that they scrimmage. And so you have to go back and look at that a little bit. Certainly their personnel changed a little bit, our personnel, and our philosophies may move a little bit. But you have to look at that. I think you have to consider it, certainly, to see who's back and how, what they believe in when it comes to defending what you do.
As a coach, with it being week 1, I know some coaches that they'll say things like, we only install a certain amount of what we're going to do. And, it might be 10% of the playbook, 20% of the playbook. For y'all, are you the same way? Do you kind of install things as you go weekly, or is that what you've been doing all this summer and you're full bore 100% in week 1?
Well, I definitely wouldn't call us full bore 100%. I think we are adding each week, something that we do is, formations. You got to add formations and verbiage. And so as we build our players' vocabulary, it allows us to be more multiple, at least on the offensive side, as they learn the words and what they mean and what that tells them to do as far as lining up. We try to keep their rules the same regardless of where they're at on the field or what they're doing. But those things, the offense grows that way. Defensively, I think it's, the adjustments to, a one-back set, a two-back set, a tight end set, a trip set, and then you make minor tweaks according to what the other team likes to do. And so I wouldn't say either side of the ball is 100% of what we're going to be. We're certainly going to be a building process throughout the season, and I'm hoping to really get us at that 100% level when district starts, because district is going to be a booger.
Yeah, let's finish with that. Give us a little bit in your mind a preview of 13-4A. I know, of course, Navarro and Wimberley, but as great as y'all were last year, a lot of people forget how, Gerald kind of came out of nowhere and had a nice little playoff run. This district isn't any easier year 2.
No, I think our district showed themselves as the best in the region as we all rematched in round 3. Gerald, our 4th place team, beat a first place team in the first round and won a second round game and rematched with Wimberley. We rematched with Navarro. So we were the only ones left standing come week 3 in the playoffs. I think it's going to be repeated the same as far as strength in the district, right? You've got quality teams that you're going to have to go in there and battle and be, very effective in what you do. You're not going to be able to coast through any games in our district.
Is your demanding work lifestyle in need of fire-resistant clothing that can keep up? Well, L4FR clothing should be your go-to for quality, affordability, safety, and style. L4FR was founded by a third-generation oil field worker who is also a veteran. Thus, this company has a deep appreciation for reliability and longevity, all while we provide first-rate customer service. Our durable apparel will serve you well for many years to come, whether you're working on a pipeline, a lineman climbing utility poles, or in any other environment requiring fire-resistant apparel. L4FR has you covered. Our apparel is tough enough to resist hazardous conditions while still providing high comfort and style. L4FR provides clothing options to ensure your safety and comfort, whether you're on the job or not. To view our complete inventory of flame-resistant garments, please visit our online store at l4frclothing.com or give us a call at 817-757-4935. Si habla español. Terry Bennett back here on the Lago Vista ISD Football Show, brought to you by the Lago Vista Booster Club. And as always, we want to thank the head coach, Creighton Phillips, for joining us as he does each and every week, and he will during the season. And interesting thing, this year, again, we talk about it. I've always said this. I've always said that when it comes to, the first game of the year, you can't pay attention to the results. I mean, just look at last year. And yes, Cameron Yo turned out to be a really good 3A team, but they don't score 71 points on Lago Vista if that game's played in any other week. You add the heat this year, and I think that matters even more. I think you're going to see a lot of depth wins, and depth's always important, but it's always very important the first couple weeks of this season. But it especially is this year, especially because unless something breaks, it's basically going to be this way for a while. It's just going to be hot. It always seems hot. Me and Grant, part of it's old man's, disease. I'm 48 and I've been watching football and going to games and playing in the games, since I was 8 years old. And every year it's later and later into the season before I'm needing a jacket, if I do need a jacket. And to be honest with you, and I'm a hot-natured person, so I will admit that. But still, more and more it's later and later into the year, and more it's maybe 1 or 2 weeks at the most. I can remember last year when we did our San Antonio Thanksgiving trip. I needed a jacket for then. And I think there was one other game that year. I want to say it was down in Houston, oddly enough. So oddly enough, the 2 times I needed a jacket last year were down in the southern parts of Texas where it's not quite as cold, and up here in Dallas where the studio is. I never needed a jacket. And it's getting like that more and more. And so that means that the front part of the season, it's just hotter and hotter and hotter. And it matters as far as injuries and depth, but it also can be a plus because you're going to have to rotate kids. And you're going to have to get guys who you might normally if the season started off and it was 85 degrees, they might get 4 or 5 snaps. Well, now they might get 10 or 15 snaps because you're trying to rotate and you're trying to not have one line or one player or one, first team core or second team core group getting over snapped too early in the season. So there are positives to it, but man, the heat, everybody be careful. And if you're in the stands, be careful. I have seen more people fall out and have effects in the stands to heat than I do to the guys on the field. So please be careful if you're going to any games. You can overheat in the stands, especially if you're all excited and you're yelling and screaming. Please hydrate, and I mean with water or something like that. You can celebrate after with other hydrations, or you could stay home and you could listen. I mean, you could watch Lago Vista on Huddle TV. Again, you can find them at fan.huddle.com. Search for Lago Vista Vikings. There is a fee per broadcast, $8 per game, $15 a month, $75 for the year. And that $75 will get you a pass to be able to watch all of Lago Vista sports. That's volleyball, basketball, football, baseball, and softball. You'll get all that with a subscription. And again, if you have any questions, reach out to Eric Holt, the broadcaster, eholt at lagovistaisd.net. By the way, he's going to be on next week on this show and on the Central Texas regional show that we're going to be doing for 4A through 2A. So be looking for that. Of course, I'll post it. And by the way, I know some of y'all only get this through Twitter or through friends, and so you don't really pay attention to the link. We are on a new network this year, S2S Sport, part of L4 Media. You can find these shows online at s2ssport.com. You can also find them on every podcast platform, the exact same podcast platforms that they were on last year. You can also find them on our Facebook page, Sideline to Sideline, or on our Twitter at Grant and Terry. And speaking of, if you're wanting to know what's happening in 4A across the state of Texas, just listen to us each and every week as Grant Goodwin and I talk 4A, 3A, and now 2A each and every week of the football season on Sideline to Sideline. And we are very, very excited for this district and Lago Vista. I think a lot of people expected Lago Vista to at least make the playoffs last year. I don't know if many people had them making the run they did, even though we did predict that exact spot where they got eliminated. We predicted that. And I predict that Lago Vista is going to make another nice run in the playoffs. Will it be a region final? I don't know. But I don't think the region necessarily got overly better. I know Sinton is there, and a lot of people are high on Sinton, but Sinton's been really inconsistent the last few years. I still think that this district is where the teams will eliminate each other like they did last year. The question for Lago Vista is seeding. Can they jump above the two big ones in Wimberley and Navarro? And mainly for me, Wimberley. Navarro is always going to be solid, of course, but Wimberley, I think this is one of those years where they're back up there. You know, they were just there last year, going to the state championship game and losing to Carthage 42-0. But I think they're right back there. I think Cody Stover at quarterback, and I think that offense. I know they don't return a lot, and they lose Hanson Colley and Lane Patek. But, man, they've got some real good beasts in there with Caden Romo on the lines, with Ty Thames, Troy Hughley, Noah Birdsong, who might be the best wide receiver / athlete in 4A. So it's going to be another tough run through 13 4A Division 2, but it's going to be a fun one. All right, that's going to do it for this week's show. If you're going to the game, please stay safe. Please stay hydrated. Be safe on your way to and from the game. And the results, we'll talk about that next week. And also, we'll talk about week 2, Little River Academy, already into week 2, right here on Lago Vista ISD Football Show. Brought to you by the Lago Vista Boosters on the S2S Sports Network, part of L4 Media Company.